Hello YouTube, CivilianSnowman here, and today I'm going to review Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, starring Michael Cera and Mary Elizabeth Winstead. This film is based on a series of graphic novels called the Scott Pilgrim novels, and it basically follows the plot of Scott Pilgrim, played by Michael Cera, is dating a 17-year-old Chinese high school girl called Knives Chow. Now, it's while he's dating her that he actually meets a girl named Ramona Flowers, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and kind of falls for her and has to basically decide what he's going to do, who he's going to, you know, end up with. He basically wants to chase Ramona Flowers, and in the process has to battle her 7 evil ex-boyfriends. So, as random as that sounds, that is the plot. Now, when I originally saw the trailer for this movie, I was switched off straight away. You know, I thought it looked pretty rubbish. I'm a big fan of Edgar Wright, who directed this film, and he's responsible for directing Spaced, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, which are, well, you know, absolutely brilliant pieces of entertainment. But when I saw the trailer for Scott Pilgrim, it just looked to me like it was trying too hard to be hip and cool and all that stuff. It looked like like I say, it was just trying too hard, and I thought I haven't really no interest in watching that. But it was upon hearing reviews online and, you know, reading more and more reviews and word of mouth as well from my friends who said it was incredible that I decided I'd go and see it. And I have to say, I watched it last night, and admittedly I was a little bit drunk while I was watching it, but I thought it was absolutely fantastic. It's definitely one of the best films I've seen in the last few years. It's absolutely brilliant. Now, before I get into what I really loved about this movie, I just want to comment on the performances. One of the other reasons I was kind of turned off to the whole idea of a Scott Pilgrim movie was the fact that Michael Cera was playing the main character. And although I liked Michael Cera in Arrested Development playing George Michael Bluth, he hasn't played another part since. He's been George Michael Bluth in practically every film he's done. So in this, I just thought going in, oh, it's just going to be another, you know, Michael Cera playing himself. But actually, no. He's playing a character. He's playing against type. He manages to apply the strongest points of his acting ability, like not so much the awkwardness, but the kind of bumbling moron, to a character who is essentially the cool kid and the hipster. You know, so basically he turns Scott Pilgrim into a likeable character, because had he played it just as a cool hipster kid who was a bit of a dick, you know, I probably wouldn't have liked the character. But Michael Cera adding his own kind of quirkiness and awkwardness to the character really made the character resonate with me a lot more, and it made me kind of, you know, fall in love with the character. So I thought I was really impressed with Michael Cera's performance, and not only him but also Mary Elizabeth Winstead I thought was really good as Ramona Flowers. Now, I will say that I thought her character was a little bit underused in the third act of the film. Now, apparently I was speaking to my friend Jen, who's read the books and is a big fan of the books and has been for a while. She holds them very dear to her heart. She's told me that Ramona Flowers has a much bigger role in the kind of last battle, if you will, and in the film she's a little bit underused, but that didn't really occur to me as a problem until Jen pointed it out. But having not read the books, I actually own the first 2 that I'm about to read. It didn't bother me, so yeah, I thought Mary Elizabeth Winstead did really well. Standout performance of the film is probably Kieran Culkin as Scott's roommate, Wallace, the gay cool roommate and all that. I thought that he did a lot with a character that could have been a cliche who we've seen before, but no, I thought Kieran Culkin managed to add a lot of heart and soul to that character and made him the standout of the movie. Okay, so what I really loved about this film is the whole style, and the fact that Edgar Wright, the director, shows us things that we haven't seen before in a film. It's basically, imagine an 8-bit video game, you know, the type that, the side-scrollers that we used to play back in the early 90s. Imagine one of them brought to life. It's brilliant how he applies that video game sensibility to the film, and even the beginning, the Universal logo is in 8-bit with the kind of tune turned into what you would hear at the beginning of one of those video games, and the battles with the evil boyfriends that take place, you know, where the big versus symbol comes up in the middle and you've got health bars above them and stuff, just like a video game. And while you'd think that it wouldn't work on paper, because when I heard about it, I was like, is that really going to work on film, or will it just come across as being gimmicky and weird? I actually really enjoyed it, and it served the film really well, because it completely fits the universe that Scott Pilgrim lives in. I mean, it's no mistake that I can't, just off the top of my head, I can't think of a single adult that I saw in this film. The world seems to be populated by 20-somethings, and it's just that kind of movie. The fact that it's made for a very niche market in the same way that Kick-Ass was. It's made for geeks of this generation, people who were between probably 18 to 24 years old, you know, who grew up with these video games. It's made for those people are people who are going to get it. I mean, anybody who is older than that, I don't want to, you know, alienate the audience and say, look, if you're like 40, 45 years old, you're not going to get the movie, because, you know, it's easy enough to understand. It's just the actual style of it won't resonate with you as much if you're not part of this generation. So in that sense, I do think of it as a time capsule, in the same way that The Lost Boys is a time capsule of the 80s for me. I think in 20, 30 years time, people will look back at Scott Pilgrim and say, yes, this is the film that defined a generation. One other thing I really loved in this movie is it contains one of the best cameo appearances I've seen in a long time. An actor playing a character who is a member of the vegan police, and that is exactly what it sounds like. I won't tell you who it is or what they do, but that made me absolutely wet myself laughing. And the circumstances of the scene as well is absolutely brilliant, so just watch out for that cameo role, because I thought it was absolutely hysterical. Another thing is that Scott Pilgrim vs. the World has a brilliant soundtrack. Now, I've read the first chapter of the first book when we see his band practice, and they have the words and the chords written down. And you can basically imagine how it would sound, and I was thinking, yeah, you know, I can kind of imagine that. And then when you see it in the film and they actually play the music, it's almost exactly how I imagined it. And the songs apparently are written by Beck for this movie. And I have to say that after seeing the band performing, because the actors actually perform the songs themselves, it's prompted me to order the soundtrack CD, because it's an absolutely brilliant soundtrack. The music is so catchy, yet so kind of grungy at the same time. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant soundtrack, very original, and I highly recommend checking out the music on YouTube. If you haven't seen the film, it might be worth checking out the song. So anyway, I'll give Scott Pilgrim a rating. I'm going to give it, and this may surprise some of you, I'm going to give Scott Pilgrim 5 stars. I honestly think it's a film that has terrific shelf life. I honestly think that in, like I said, 20, 30 years time, people will look back on Scott Pilgrim and say that that is a generation on film. You know, it's definitely one of those time capsule movies. It's very much of its time. It's not ahead of its time by any stretch. It's very much of its time, and in that respect, it's not often that a film like that comes along. So it's definitely its finger is perfectly on the pulse at the moment. The acting in it is really good. Edgar Wright, the director, has shown us action and scenes and homages to action movies and video games that we've never seen before in film. And to be honest, when I go to the cinema, I do like to see shit that I've never seen before. That's one of the reasons I loved Inception. So I can't give Scott Pilgrim anything less than 5 stars, and it's actually failing financially at the moment. So if you watch this review and you're intrigued to see the movie, please go and see it, because it really needs to make money. For the sake of humanity and the movie-going public, please help Scott Pilgrim make money. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this review. Thank you to everybody who watches, rates, comments and subscribes. You're all absolutely brilliant. This is CivilianSnowman signing out. I'll see you later. Bye.